The applicant requests relief from minimum lot area for Lot 1, and then relief from frontage and width for Lot 2, and any other relief deemed necessary. Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman Reedy.
Yeah, just your name and address for the record.
My name's Attorney William Harvey. I represent Donald and Teresa Fogg. Their address is 47 Chelmsford Street.
'47 Boston Road.
I'm so sorry. I always say Chelmsford Street. That was my last law office. 47 Boston Road. I even got the abutters list for 47 Chelmsford Street. So, Mr. Chairman, as you're aware, the powers of the Board of Appeals shall have and exercise all powers granted to it by Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, 40B, and 41, and by this chapter. The Board's powers are as follows: to hear and decide appeals or petitions for variances from the terms of this chapter with respect to particular land or structures as set forth in Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 10. Relevant criteria from Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 10. Section 10. The permit granting authority shall have the power, after public hearing for which notice has been given by publication and posted as provided in Section 11, and by mailing to all parties in interest, to grant upon appeal or upon petition with respect to a particular land or structures a variance from the terms of the applicable zoning ordinances or bylaw where such permit granting authority specifically finds that, owing to circumstances related to the soil conditions, shape, or typography of such land or structures, and especially affecting such land or structures but not affecting generally the zoning district, and I emphasize that, would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the petitioner or appellant, and that the desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent or purpose of such ordinance or bylaw. With respect to criteria A, owing to circumstances relating to the soil, conditions, shape, or typography of such land or structures, and especially affecting such land or structures but not affecting the general zoning district in which it is located. The appellant's response to criteria A is that the granting of this variance will have little impact on the area and the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, and the intent of the purpose of the zoning bylaw will be met, and will not substantially derogate from the intent and purpose of the bylaw, nor will it be detrimental to the neighborhood. The hardship is due to the unique shape and typography and its location in the unusual and special circumstances involving the preservation of the historic Hezekiah Parkhurst House circa 1698 by renovating the home to its historical character. The structure, the Hezekiah Parkhurst House is uniquely historically significant structure built in 1698, currently situated on 68,075 square feet of land located at 47 Boston Road. The Chelmsford Historical Commission has determined that the structure is historically significant in that it's their wish to be preserved. There was a hearing before the Chelmsford Historical Commission with regards to the plan in order to preserve this house. Without the requested relief granted by this board, the land will be developed for its highest and best use, which will be a new single-family dwelling. Criteria B, a literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance or bylaw would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the petitioner or appellant. The applicant proposes to preserve the Hezekiah Parkhurst House by seeking a variance under 195-9 conformity. That is, to create a new lot on an existing lot, which I've already stated contains approximately 69,000 square feet. The applicant requests relief from the minimum lot area for lot number 1. Lot number 1 is where the Hezekiah Parkhurst House is located. which consists of, I can't read this from here. The lot will consist of 23,049, which is consistent with the houses on Boston Road, the historic properties on Boston Road, which I'll discuss later. And relief from frontage and lot width for Lot 2. Lot 2 will contain 42,016 square feet of land. Lot 2 will conform with all other dimensional requirements for zoning. Criteria C, desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment. Excuse me, I'm going to go back to applicant's response to criteria B. Furthermore, with regards to the literal enforcement, which would involve a substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, the board should realize that the owners of the property, Mrs. and Mr. Donald Fogg, have owned this house for 3 generations, dating back to the 1600s. It's always been in their family. Currently, the house is in pre-foreclosure, and the Foggs reached out to me because I'm a resident of Chelmsford. They are well aware that I purchase historical houses. I renovate historical houses in an attempt to preserve them. The current property, if you'd see it now, it's been completely neglected. The land has been neglected. There's, automobiles on the property, a car, there's a motorcycle, there's a lot of waste. And what should be noted is this isn't a purposeful neglect or intentional neglect of the property by the property owners. It's unfortunate that the Foggs had to put financial needs first with regards to the medical needs of Mrs. Fogg. And I'd rather not go into any further detail about her medical conditions over their mortgage payments as well as the maintenance of the house, which they're just absolutely unable to do. And as a result, the house is in foreclosure. Criteria C, desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent and purpose of such ordinance or bylaw. This board, the desirable relief may be granted not only without substantial detriment to the public good, but with substantial benefit to the public good. The applicant requests the relief for minimum lot area for Lot 1, as I said, which would consist of 23,041 square feet, and relief from frontage for Lot 2. Relief from frontage for only Lot 2. Lot 2 will conform in all other dimensional zoning requirements. This plan has been unanimously endorsed by the Chelmsford Historical Commission, and I believe that there is a member here tonight to speak in favor of it and also give you a historical background of this house. Now, with regards to, I'd like to talk about the character of the neighborhood. Now, this board has obviously been created to make sure that the zoning in this town is in conformity to the area and neighborhoods that the properties are currently zoned. Now, this property is zoned RB, residential, single family, but it's also extremely unique as opposed to you'd consider an RB district of all the houses containing 40,000 square feet with the appropriate frontage, and all the houses would be single-family houses. However, on Boston Road, it's more or less a mixed-use land area, although it's identified as RB, whereby we have single-family houses, we have single-family non-conforming lots, we have multi-families, we have apartment buildings across the street. However, the flow into the Chelmsford Center with regards to these old historic houses are the vibrant of the town. When people go heading into the Chelmsford Center, they see the row of the old cottages, the old houses dating back to the 1700s. And in particular, this house is an extremely rare house dating back to 1698. Now, I had an opportunity to speak to the neighbor that's the budding neighbor to my left, which is I don't, number 40, I think it's 45. Excuse me, it's, 55 Boston Road. Now, that lot, it's a single-family dwelling, and that lot consists of 24,829 square feet, which would be consistent with the proposal for lot number 1. Furthermore, if you look at 59 Boston Road, that has 3,920 square foot lot.
30,000, maybe?
No, excuse me, 3,920 square feet according to the assessors database, 59 Boston Road. It's an extremely small house. It's probably 5 feet from the road, and it's carved out. Furthermore, if you look further up the street at 65 Boston Road, you have a parcel, a large parcel. It's 35 Boston Road, you have a larger parcel, which is 1.42 acres. However, that parcel consists of three residential dwelling units. And the house that's immediately to the right of 47 Boston Road contains only 13,068 square feet. So with relative to the square footage of the lots, the proposal with regards to lot number 1 would be consistent with the houses on that street. And furthermore, with regards to lot number 2, it's a very large parcel of land. It's very rare that you see a piece of land this large in the town of Chelmsford. But what's unique is that there won't be a detriment to any of the neighbors, because this house that's proposed at lot number 2 will be set back way in the back. It'll be directly behind lot number 1. And furthermore, if it is allowed, I'll be constructing a single-family dwelling that will not resemble I'd say, a new type of a house. I would construct the house that would resemble a colonial-looking house that would fit well with the neighborhood. And with regards to my past involvement with this board, as well as previous boards, I've been consistent with developing properties that have a historic look to them. For instance, 75 North Road, I was before this board, which granted me a second building on a 40,000 square foot lot, allowing me to keep the historic Simeon Spalding house as a 3-family, however, to remain the outside characteristics as a single family, which it does from the road, and then build a 5-unit building in the back that would resemble a historic structure, and that was done. So it conforms with the neighborhood. And I've had a lot of people question whether or not that was actually a new building or it was a renovated historic structure. In addition, right down the street at 15 Wilson Street, I purchased a historic house many years ago that was a single-family dwelling, and I received permission to make it into a 2-family, and then later on, permission to create a 3-family. However, if you look at the property, it remains consistent, and it looks as a single-family dwelling. And I have several other properties in town that I own as historic properties, and I attempt to maintain them the best I can. Now, as I stated, we have historic properties in town, and it's unfortunate that in the past 20 years, 25 years, there's been historic houses that have been demolished for the purposes of building new structures, rather than coming before this board and seeking permission on a creative way in order to save a structure, but at the same time be allowed to develop on the property, and therefore saving historic structure. Otherwise, what's been happening is that if there's no relief granted, then these historic buildings, it's easier for developers just to tear them down and build a brand-new building as opposed to trying to fix something up. In my case, I think what happens is when you have a plan similar to this, my proposal would be obviously to completely renovate the historic house. The house currently has vinyl siding, which would be torn off and it would be replaced with all wood. The windows would all be replaced with Anderson wood windows. There'd be wood shutters. There wouldn't be any vinyl. It'd go right back to its historic structure. In addition, I had a meeting with the Historic Commission, and they're willing to work with me. I'm willing to work with them, so we could have meetings. So if they see anything that might raise some eyebrows, they'd be more than willing to come onto the property at any time, and for me to go before their meetings before I do anything such as replace the siding and any other renovations to the property. So one thing that would be allowed to renovate a structure like this, number one, extremely expensive because the house is in complete dilapidation. The roof is gone, the siding, the windows, the heating system, the basement's filled with water. If the building inspector went into that building, he'd condemn it without question. So with regards to financing a new house in the back, that financing from the bank would allow the preservation and the reconstruction of the historical house. Now, the house is 1698, and to put that in perspective, I looked at some history in the United States. So the house is 1698. The Statue of Liberty was established in 1875, well after the construction of this house. The signing of the Declaration of Independence was 1776. The first president of the United States, George Washington, was inaugurated in 1789, well after this house was constructed. Now, I've taken the steps necessary to make an appearance tonight and before this board as well as the Historic Commission in order to save the house. But unfortunately, this is an economic decision that if the house cannot be, if the variance cannot be granted tonight, then it would be obviously the second option would be to develop the land. So I'm hoping that this board, within its powers, within its broad discretion, if this board didn't have broad discretion, we wouldn't have this board. That's what the planning board is for, it's black and white with the planning board, but it's not black and white with this board. You have a wide range of discretion, and you're all appointed on this board for that consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the board?
I do have my, I do have my engineer present tonight, if you'd like to ask him any questions, and he can make a quick presentation based on the work that he has done. Brian Goodrow is present from Hancock Associates.
Yep. Good evening, Brian Goodrow with Hancock Associates. So we are the civil engineers and land surveyors of record for this property, so that's how the ZBA exhibit plan is presented before you. We were out there with on-the-ground survey to establish boundary, which is actually quite challenging given the fact all the history that Mr. Harvey went over. The property's been carved up over the years, and this is a remaining parcel to the end of development. I'm happy to answer questions. We've evaluated the property to the degree that we can say confidently Lot 2 will be fully conforming except for the lot relief that Mr. Harvey had requested, and obviously Lot 1 is going to retain the historic home.
Maybe you can help me. I thought that a lot was not allowed to have a less than a 50-foot width.
Correct.
So in this front corner, we're at 43. I'm not sure how that allows you to use that area.
So it does not. If you
Okay.
take a look at the plan, there's a hatched area. That hatched area is subtracted out of the lot area calculation. So anything that has any portion of the lot that has a width less than 50 feet for a distance of
Been
150 feet is discarded. So this lot is still fully conforming with area.
And the frontage is almost 58 feet for the lot?
Yep, the frontage is, on Lot 2, is 43.91 feet.
And that gets us the required 150 feet on the existing lot,
Correct.
but leaves us 97 feet short on the frontage on this lot?
Correct.
Okay. No questions from the board. I'm going to read the letters in this time. Regarding 47 Boston Road, engineering has the following notes. Contact the sewer division for a sewer permit connection to the municipal sewer system is required. Financial and connection requirements to be coordinated with the DPW sewer division. Consideration should be made to install roof drain drywalls to keep the stormwater runoff within the property. Erosion control in the street is required. Erosion control devices must retain the sediment on site. These must be installed prior to any work or earth disturbance. A road opening permit will be required for work within the right-of-way. Contact the DPW Highway Division for all necessary permits. I have a letter from Chelmsford Fire Prevention for 47 Boston Road. Dear members of the board, this department has been asked to review the proposal and subdivide the lot at 47 Boston Road and finds the following. Any home or structure that may be constructed on the parcel that is known as Lot 2 on the submitted plan shall be accessible by a driveway with driveway access within 50 feet of a doorway that can be opened from the outside and access the interior of the home. The driveway shall be capable of supporting ladder 1 of the Chelmsford Fire Department, or 83,000 pounds. Such capability shall be certified to the Fire Prevention Office in writing by a licensed engineer at the time of building permit application. This department will approve of this proposal with this condition. I ask the board to make this letter part of their decision. Daniel Kostofis, Captain, Chelmsford Fire Department. I'll interrupt myself. Do you know if we meet this requirement with the driveway to access there? Seems to be a bit of an open lot without any,
Yeah, I don't see a driveway. Is that
Right, so
the
that's the
excluded area?
Yeah, that's the proposed plan. So if you look at Lot 2, generally speaking, the hatched area is where the driveway will run into the lot. And then we can certainly design, the bearing capacity of the subgrade to support the weight of the apparatus that fire prevention was asking for.
terrific. Moving on, I have a letter from the police. You see the attached letter. This is from Special Services Division, Chelmsford Board of Appeals, regarding 47 Boston Road, seeking a variance under 195.9. Dear Chelmsford Board of Appeals, that the Division of Special Services has reviewed the attached plan for 47 Boston Road, in which the applicant seeks a variance under 195.9. Upon careful review of the plans, the Chelmsford Police Department has concerns regarding the placement of the driveway. If this variance was in fact granted, depending on the placement of the driveway in Boston Road, the placement could cause a significant lack of visibility due to the road curvature. The safety issue is evident for motorists traveling down Boston Road from the center and also for a motorist exiting the driveway onto Boston Road. If you have questions or concerns, please let me know. Sincerely, Lieutenant Colin C. Spence, Special Services Division, Chelmsford Police Department. I have a letter from the Board of Health with no comments. I have a letter from Center Water District citing no comments. And that's it. That's the letters that I have. This time I'm going to open up the microphone to the audience. If someone has concerns or an opinion on this, please approach the podium, your name and address, and any statement you'd like to make.
Good evening. My name's Brian Bestfader. I'm a resident, Boston Road, across the road at 54 Boston Road. I'm relatively new to the area. when I heard of this variance by mail, as is required, my initial concern resonated exactly what the police chief said. It's a very busy road. A lot of children are active on mostly the side that I live on, and
You're in a butter to the left, is that right?
right across
Oh, across the street.
the big yellow historic home.
Okay.
The increase in traffic is really not welcome on that road. It's already busy enough. You know, we hear probably, I don't know, 5 emergency vehicles traveling down that road a week because of traffic accidents or things that are going on. I wouldn't welcome more traffic. So my concern would be that, you know, you're creating more unsafe environments for the current residents and for the people that would buy that. I welcome the idea of trying to preserve that house, but not that way.
Thank you.
Is there someone from the Historical Commission? Did he say someone from the Historical Commission was gonna?
Someone is there. If they wish to speak, they're welcome to. I don't know who that is.
I thought he said that.
Oh, I'm not from the Historical Commission.
You're still welcome to speak.
Hi. My name's David Hutchinson. I live at 42 Bartlett Street. So I don't know if I abut, but I mean, it's,
You're behind the property.
yeah, my fire pit is right on the corner there. So I live right next to Barbara Jones and Mary Woodward. And I spoke to both of them earlier today. And they wanted me to come and express that we are opposed to this plan. While I can appreciate people's financial hardships, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. I don't think it would be good to have a house where they want to put that. That's right in the middle of the woods. I mean, that would be right in our backyard where my kids play. We'd have to shift our whole garden around. It's right in the back of Mary's yard. It's right in the back of Barbara's yard. And she couldn't come because she's in her 90s and she isn't well. She was born in that house. And she encouraged me to come down and fight putting a house right on the back of her property. Beyond that, I wish them well with fixing up their house. But as I said, for the reasons of where it is, and already our street's being cut up. We used to get herds of deer, and now we don't get hardly any animals. I mean, it's quite sad, really. We just went through this a few months ago, and now there's more people trying to divide up their property. So we would be. That's me. This is part of Mary's garden, right here. This is us, and this is Barbara Jones. This is all agricultural stuff all through here. So this is us. That's our little refuge.
Okay.
Anyway, that was my. I just wanted to exert that. You know, those of us that live on the street behind, I would disagree that that's a normal lot. None of us have lots that are that wonky. And where was the driveway going to be on this new structure?
It actually hasn't been determined yet. There's a 50-foot wide opening that would accommodate a driveway and whatever. That's all there is. Actually, it shrinks down from that to 43, I believe.
I mean, would this be
That's a
like
very
so there'd
tight
be headlights
access.
going across the back of our houses and things? And
Well,
yeah, I'm
they'd be
concerned.
entering from Boston Road. They wouldn't be entering from your.
Right, but I mean that's there's a fence on the property that adjoins it. That's right here. And if the house was built in this vicinity, that's right on top of us. I mean, that would be we'd have to put up trees and things for any kind of privacy.
I appreciate your concerns.
And I understand that that's not their concerns, but you know, I just wanted to put that out for us for Mary and Barbara and I. So thank you.
Hello, I'm Deb Taverna, 109 Bivrica Road, and I'm from the Historical Commission. This is a house that we would like to see saved. It fits in well with that streetscape. From the beginnings, it kind of shows the history of Chelmsford. A lot of commercial people live there, like carpenters and our tradespeople all through the years. And we'd like to try to save it somehow. That's all.
Thank you. Good evening.
I'm Monica Sheehan Craig. I live at 41 Boston Road, which is directly next to the existing property. We're the small yellow house that's also quite near the road. And I am obviously concerned and interested in what this plan is, in particular what the driveway situation is. We have probably the most treacherous driveway on Boston Road. We have a hill with a stone wall and a shrub. It's very difficult to get in and out. And the existing driveway at 47 is sort of adjacent to the stone wall between our properties. So I'm still unclear about whether we've decided that the driveway is going to be on one side or the other of the existing house, or...
If you were facing the home the way this was proposed, the driveway would be to the left of the existing home, all the way at the end of the property line. It looks like there's a stone wall there.
Okay, so it's a hash mark
The
on
new
this.
lot, if you would go from the stone wall in the corner 50 feet towards your house, I believe. Right there, yeah?
Because the existing driveway, which is
Is
small, is
that
on the
the
other
other
side.
end? Right, right. So they would have, the way it's shown now, a 50-foot, or actually a 43 because of the taper that you see, width to fit that driveway in. I mean, that could happen. It's obviously very concerning. You know, we're gonna deliberate as we can to determine whether this is a good fit. There's obviously a fair amount of opposition from the abutters, and we certainly take that into account as well. You know, what we need to determine is there a hardship, which is difficult at times, and if we can actually do it, as it doesn't have the frontage, a lot, to be a lot, has to have the requirement of frontage.
Right.
So this doesn't have the frontage, which we can allow a variance for, but we're dropping it by 2/3. It's a very difficult choice to follow that. I don't know of an example where we've granted what was called typically a pork chop lot. And then further exacerbating the problem is Lot 1 doesn't conform, so you have the problem there. It actually has area and frontage, so that technically is a lot, but there's no, it's difficult to understand the hardship of creating a lot. You have a lot. To create two is not in the, it's not that it's not in the purview of the board. I'm struggling to understand the hardship to grant that. It is required that it's soil conditions, lot shape, and topography. I don't see that being a necessity to create a non-conforming lot. If it were a conforming lot, you could make the argument that the boulders on the side of the hill don't let you get in that way, and that's a hardship formed by topography. But we're certainly going to debate it as a board and decide if this is the right fit.
Thank you.
Just for clarity, are you for or against the development?
I would have serious concerns about it.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Mickey Goodrich. I live at 41 Boston Road, and my question is about, they spoke of it, they have water in the basement. It's a recurring problem for them. And I'd like to know what the source is, and will the construction further up the hill affect the way the water flows? I don't want
You
the
wonder
water.
whether the new lot would create a
Well, it'll
new
change
water
things.
hazard for the existing lot and the neighbors.
Yes. Can that be addressed?
Maybe the engineer could respond to that as best he can.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So to speak to groundwater conditions, we haven't gone out there to do official soil testing to understand what the groundwater elevation is, what the underlying soil texture is. As a part of state building code, foundations are required to be at or above the estimated seasonal high groundwater, so we would have to determine that and understand where that is before we could propose elevations on a new building. Engineering has commented that they'd like to see dry wells and roof drains to mitigate runoff, and usually as a part of that, we go out there and we do the soil testing. So there's already two factors that will require us to fully evaluate that condition and make sure that there's no detrimental impacts, not only to the new home, but to surrounding neighborhoods. We're tasked with essentially mirroring existing conditions or improving them. So whatever is currently happening today will either remain the same, or we will improve that through best management practices.
Can I ask you a question?
Just please approach the podium so you can be heard.
Clarifying question, I just didn't quite understand.
And if I could ask for your
all that.
name and address again, just.
So just to clarify, so what you really mean is that you haven't determined what the soil is yet, so you can't make that determination, but it's possible that you would have to have a fairly high basement to avoid those conditions. Therefore, the whole elevation of the structure would be relatively high. Possible.
Anything's possible.
Okay. Just wanted to understand what he was trying to say.
I appreciate that. Would anyone else like to speak in favor or opposition to this application? Hello? I gotta have your name and address, please.
It's Kim Fontaine at 35 Boston Road.
Good evening.
Good evening. I just want to say I support what my abutters are talking about as well. We do enjoy the deer in the backyard and the owls, and we feel that this could be an encroachment upon that. And also, I have a question, it might be for the engineer. I don't know what that area is right here, if I can approach this. What does that mean? This abuts my land. What does that mean? Is there a discrepancy there or something, or?
I think it may be just expanded so you can see exactly what's going on there, but I'm going to,
Here's a zoomed-in version of the corner.
And is this?
is that what it is? Yeah, it's just a detail. It allows clarity for where that corner is. You have all the dimensions,
Dimensions in there.
but it's really just locating that point more. It just expands and locates that point and defines it.
It defines it, okay. All right. And is the proposal going to be like to tear this down, or? Because
Well,
initially I
the
thought this was gonna be
suggestion
the
is
drive-
that they would keep the house as it is and refurbish it, but we have no guarantee of that. We have nothing. What we're approving is the Lot 2, based on the lot itself, and Lot 1 based on what's left. But as far as what they do on the property, they can say anything. We don't know what they're gonna do. It could be they get into the home and it's not savable, or they couldn't salvage it. We just don't, there's no condition you can put on that to preserve that. As much as, we try to work in tandem with historic, I would like to see buildings preserved. We really have no teeth whatsoever in enforcing that. We have no, we really can't even consider it in our deliberation. It isn't part of what allows for a variance. Lot shape, soil conditions, and topography are our three allowances. And to grant a variance, we have to have a hardship, which is different than a special permit. So we'd have to decide that the hardship is such that if this wasn't done, it would be a substantial loss, not necessarily monetarily, but of some fashion.
Does the Historical Society have funds to help with this hardship? Volunteers?
I also don't know the answer to that.
Grants,
There's
anything
a
like
community
that?
preservation money. I don't think that's typically used in private residences, but I couldn't say you couldn't. I just don't know enough about
If
it.
it proves historical, like pre-Declaration of Independence, pre-George Washington, as spoken earlier, there's a will, there's a way.
Technically, if you wish to tear that structure down, you have to wait a year. And after that, the Historical Commission has no say. You have to wait that year while they can do diligence on the property and decide if it is, in fact, a substantial piece of history, I guess, is an easy word.
I'm just talking
This
to
is really,
preserve it,
a
to
lot of this is really
alleviate
beyond the
hardship.
purview of this board. We have a pretty narrow definition that we need to stick to. But I can appreciate the historical significance, it's just-
I had that question too. I was wondering that, if there were funds that the owners could look
Sure.
into to restore it.
I don't think that
Grants
you may get some kind of
volunteers.
federal grant or something, but I don't know of it. I don't know of any for private residences where you could get funding to rehab a private residence. The town might go to town meeting and grant funds for a
Like a
building
historical
they
Habitat
own.
for Humanity or something, you know, just,
It's a possibility, yeah.
You
yeah.
can always ask.
Yeah.
that's why I'm here, okay.
Thank you.
Hi, so I'm Christiana Schneid, and I'm abutting to the left side of of this property.
The drive
On
side.
55 Boston Road. And I have the little pizza-shaped house, you know, pizza-shaped property. I have about 5 tiers to my property from the street up. And so this is a very hilly section of town, and I'd be concerned about the drainage in the back, and I did express that to Bill when I spoke with him yesterday in regards to how the drainage occurs in the very back of the property on the top level. It currently does go through the Fogg property, which is why I would believe there are drainage issues going into that house. But the current drainage from the very back seems to flow back in and then into that property. And I believe it's been alleviated a bit because where the 50-foot boundary is, that there isn't anything being, you know, built on or where that boundary is, that's where I think the drainage predominantly flows through, or even into the yard space further to the left. So I did just want to make sure people were aware of that. And of course, I mean, I'd have a concern with the driveway going up the side, which I had expressed to Mr. Harvey as well, that just the driveway going up, you know, would most likely end up on, you know, my side of the property, because that's the most level area to put a driveway. And then, of course, I had a concern about the width of that driveway. My driveway is currently 10 feet in width, and I had a concern about how wide it would be and whether we were just putting more, you know, concrete
Impermeable
down
surface
and
there.
things like that, right,
Right,
exactly,
right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate the concerns of my neighbors, but I think what we should all recognize, and I believe that the neighbors should realize this, is that what we have here is a 70,000 square foot lot with the appropriate frontage, the appropriate setbacks, the appropriate rear setbacks, the appropriate width to build a single-family dwelling without any permission from the Board of Appeals or the Planning Board or anything else. It would be an approval through simply applying for a building permit. So, like I said, I appreciate their concerns. Everybody likes to have the, you know, the woods, the privacy, but the fact is, it's a private piece of land. It's just an unfortunate situation where we have a historical house that's on the property. So if the board, if it's unfortunate where the board denies this application, everybody in the room should realize that the next step would be to build a single-family dwelling on a 70,000 square foot lot.
Comfortable with that?
The house, excuse me,
I'm comfortable with that.
you're comfortable with demoing the house?
If that's the right way to go, you
Right.
can. I can't speak for the house. It's not even a decision we're gonna make here, whether there's a historic property or not. It doesn't fall under our purview.
It does. It does fall under your purview.
Respectfully, I disagree.
Well, respectfully, you're incorrect once again. So let me state to Mr. Menendez. Mr. Menendez. Excuse me, Mendez. Well, I'll speak to the entire board. So there is precedent, and as Attorney Morency knows, is when you make an argument, you always want to have precedence. Was this ever done in Chelmsford before? Could I ask you a question? I'm not on the board. Mr. Reedy, has this ever been approved in Chelmsford whereby there's a decision to create an undersized lot to preserve a historical structure?
Oh, I think it has. Yes,
Okay, it has. So there's precedence. So I want all the board members to realize there's precedence. So whether you deny it, then you're denying it. There is already a demolition permit that's been filed, and the historic house, unfortunately, will be demolished, and there'll be a new house on the lot. And the new house that will be built on the lot will be in compliance with all zoning, okay? With regards to, it's gonna be a single-family dwelling. It'll be utilized as a single-family dwelling. There won't be any home occupations out of the house. There won't be any storage trailers on the house. There won't be any dumpster businesses on the house, or any type of contracting businesses run out of the house, because it's a residential neighborhood. Okay? We have other people in town which utilize RB districts, which this board is supposed to enforce. You have a RB districts to raise a family, to use it as a dwelling house for the purposes of raising your family in Chelmsford, to allow your children to go to school, to have the neighborhood safe. I think you'd all agree with me as board members that that's what your property should be used for, and not any illegal or unpermitted uses. And rest assured, I can guarantee you, number one, that the historic house will be saved. If there's any history that I've ever demolished a house, I've ever intentionally let a house be run down, it's never happened. You have to look at a person's history. You can't just state on television and in front of the audience to an attorney that we can't be guaranteed anything. I think there is a guarantee. I'm here on public television as an attorney, and I'm telling you the truth, that that house will be saved and preserved to its historical character as every property I've done in this town. So I find it very insulting that I'm being portrayed as a person that is just saying it, and it's not going to be done. It's always been done. Everything I've done in this town has been perfect. I build houses. I'm the best builder, I can tell you right now, in Chelmsford. My houses are perfect. My properties are perfect. Go to my properties on Ready Way that I'm building right now. Nobody can duplicate a house, and I get a lot of pride. I plant the grass myself. I dig holes myself, not in a fancy suit. I've been doing it since I was 12 years old. So I'm not coming before you as someone that's arrogant, that's going to do what I'm going to do. I'm telling you the honest-to-God truth. I have a lot of pride in the work I do. I don't live in another town where I'm going to come in, make as much money as I can, build a cheap product, and leave. That's not what I'm about. Okay? Now, this board, as I said before, it's not black and white of the law. As the planning board has a set of rules, which are bylaws that they have to follow. If you don't have 150 feet of frontage in a development, it can't be approved. That's why each one of you has been appointed by the town manager because of your background, your skill, knowledge, and objective decision-making. And you'll have to be applauded for that. That's why you're here. Now, talking to people in town, when I proposed this, 100% of people said, this is a no-brainer. And of course, I always tell them, nothing's a no-brainer. But everybody said this is a no-brainer. Who wouldn't want to preserve a house like that? This board has a history, it has a precedent, it has a decision that was recorded, that this board allowed an undersized lot to be created to preserve a historical house. And if you don't believe that, I'll give you a copy of it. In the language that I've used for my argument with regards to what the hardship was drafted by this town's attorney when he was a sitting member of this board. And it specifically stated, the hardship is due to the unique shape and typography in its location and unusual and specific circumstances involving the preservation of the historic house by renovating the home to its historical character. That was written by a licensed attorney in Massachusetts, someone that's extremely qualified. He was qualified to sit here as chairman, and he's qualified now to be our town attorney. So that's the argument. And like I said, with regards to the neighbors, I understand their concerns, but they have to realize this is private property, and the house is going to be built no matter what. By all means, that's not a threat. it's what it is. It's a 70,000 square foot parcel of land in Chelmsford. And it's economically impossible to purchase a house that I'm be purchasing at it, that the bank requires in order to pay off the mortgage that's in foreclosure, and to preserve the house the way it is. Doesn't make sense. I've done it before. What are you gonna do? Spend $200,000 to renovate a house and collect $1,500 in rent and be into it for $450,000? That's a financial hardship. And if you look at the history of the Foggs, they've been there for 3 generations. They reached out to me because they wanted to save the house. Mrs. Fogg was in tears when I was at her house because she had all these people. I buy houses. Jim buys houses. You see them all on the telephone poles, banging on her door, offering her $150,000, $160,000. She said, please, my grandmother would kill me if this house goes to foreclosure and it's destroyed. Please save the house. That's what I promised her. I said, I'll do the best I can. I'll go to the Historic Commission, I'll make their presentation, and unfortunately, there's another board that I'll have to go before to preserve the house. So, it's your decision whether or not you want to preserve a parcel of property that has a historic significance in the town, and that's your decision. But at the same time, this is a legal lot. It meets all the legal requirements for a buildable lot without any permission from anybody. And with regards to, public funding and donations to fix this house up, let's just take a look at 101 Mill Road. How did that go? Didn't go too well. The town took it over, let it sit there for 5 years, let it go to disrepair. I came in and I bought it. I've already spent about $50,000 or $60,000 trying to repair everything because it was vacant for 5 years without any heat. And I promised to do what I told everybody else I'd do. I'll preserve it. And I've been asked, so what's going on there? It's being preserved. I'm spending money over there, a lot of money over there, when money should be going out of my other properties. So that's another property that's been saved by a private person. So the last thing that's ever going to happen is the town's going to come in and offer me money to buy this house and try and buy it and preserve it. We've already have a history that can't be done. The best way to preserve this house and preserve the integrity of the town is to save it. And that's why I'm before you. And I'm adamant that this house should be saved. So it's your decision tonight, and I've also set precedent when anybody else states this hasn't been done, there isn't a hardship, there is a hardship. Okay? And you have a lot of leeway with regards to the hardship. Like I said before, the property will be used for its intended zoning, residential. That goes for anybody that abuts any of my properties that's zoned residential. I'll make sure and I'll enforce it, that every property is used for residential purpose that it's zoned for. Thank you.
Certainly.
Again, I'm David Hutchinson, 42 Bartlett Street. I just wanted to urge not to accept these variances, especially after hearing a very wonky argument. To create more wonky properties, I certainly wouldn't trust this person to represent a good deal. I'm surprised. That's all I could say. But please, I would urge you not to accept these variances.
Nice t-shirt.
Certainly.
Deb Taverna, 109 Billbrook Road, Historical Commission again. This is one of the oldest houses still in Chelmsford, standing in Chelmsford, which is why the Historical Commission would like to find a way to save this. I don't know if this is the plan, but I'd like to see us to try to work something out.
Have you toured the house? Have you been through it?
We have not toured the house. It's a private residence.
I know from, Mr. Harvey said the roof was junk, the siding was junk, the basement was flooded. I'm just wondering what condition is it? Is it savable? If you'd like to
That's-
tour it and come back and talk to us about that, we can certainly continue this. That's not a problem.
I mean, we would be open to touring it. I don't think
I
that
don't
we
know
can
if Mr.
consider
Harvey will
ourselves
allow you to go
experts
through,
on,
but I'd love
you
to
know,
have your
total
opinion. You think it
restoration there.
was- I mean, historically significant, is there any event that occurred there that you're aware of, or any, anything
I
of
know it's part
interest?
of the fabric of our early history in town. A lot of our tradespeople live there, you know, and I can do some more research and bring that back to you.
Now, what is your policy on tearing that house down? Do you have a year to determine that whether
We
that's?
have a demolition delay bylaw in town. We would go through the public hearing process, and then at the end of the hearing, if we deemed it historically significant, then there would be a year's delay. And then within that year, we try to work with the homeowner to try to save it.
Okay.
So in working with the homeowner, I'm curious, was it Mrs. Fontaine, one of the
Oh, it's-
abutters? Okay, yeah.
Oh, the abutters.
One of the abutters asked about if the historical commission, if there was
We're a
funding to
town committee,
renovate
we have no
buildings.
funds.
But are there organizations that have funds? Like, is that something that the owners could potentially look into as another option to preserve their home?
Maybe
or-
with a federal grant or something, but
There isn't a lot.
there is not a lot, unfortunately. Thank you.
Just to answer a quick question with regards to the historical significance, you know, whether or not they've been in the house. I've been in the house, okay? And Mrs. Fogg, Mr. and Mrs. Fogg told me what was very unique about the house is that house has been used for tours. She told me there was a Harvard professor that went through the house with students, and as well as another professor. And I couldn't really understand why, and she told me the reasoning. And they wanted to show them the steps going up to the second floor. I didn't want to go up to the second floor because I thought it was strange when I started walking up to the second floor. It just felt uncomfortable because the steps were all different sizes. And she told me the historical significance about that, and it had to do with slavery. And the reason when people came in to look for slaves is if the steps were all different, they just forgot about going up to the second floor. So that was the reasoning for the tours that were given by a professor at Harvard Harvard School. And she said there was another professor with students that came in and had a history lesson, more or less, because something like that doesn't exist anymore. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. Relative, can it be saved? Anything can be saved. Can I save it? I guarantee you I can save it. You could put in your decision that that the decision is based upon Mr. Harvey preserving the integrity of the house. The house isn't going to be torn down, unlike a house that was across the street from the Church of Christ where the person came before the homeowner and said that they're going to replicate the house, do everything over, and it doesn't look historic at all. This house, I can guarantee everybody in the room, it's going to be saved. It's not going to be torn down. It's going to be replicated exactly the way it was. And also, to let you know, this house also had a secondary structure on it, which is important because 75 North Road, the reason why this board granted the variance for 75 North Road for the 5-unit apartment building is because it was a secondary structure on the property. Now, the secondary structure on this property was a massive chicken coop. And the foundation currently remains on the property. Foundation is part of a building. It's part of a structure. It's not attached to the house. So what we have is 2 structures on the property. So I think that it's important. You can see it from here. That structure is twice the size of the house. It's a separate structure. And just for an argument, that was the argument that was used for the approval for 75 North Road, which you see today. It's in conformity with the neighborhood. The neighbors like it, people like it, it doesn't distract, and that's what we're trying to do here today. So I think it's important that you consider also that there is a secondary structure on the property.
Is the structure still there, or is it just the foundation?
The foundation is still there.
Okay.
It's a solid foundation that's still on the property.
According to North Road.
No, I was talking about this one.
Is the
Is
structure
there a
still on
structural,
this
is there,
here?
there's just a foundation, that's it, there's no,
There was a foundation also only on 75 North Road.
okay.
And like I said, I'm here tonight guaranteeing that the house will be preserved. There hasn't been a house in Chelmsford I've torn down. There's plenty of houses that should have been torn down, but I didn't tear them down. They're preserved.
Any other comments or concerns this evening? Seeing none, entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Second? All in favor?
All right.
We'll take this up. Are there any thoughts?
I appreciate the historicness and trying to preserve it and the hardship as to the financial, but I just don't see the hardship as it relates to the criteria we have to meet, which is the lot area, the topography. I don't see any of that being a hardship.
That's what I was thinking too, because it's really not there. If you didn't split the lot, you wouldn't have it.
You'd have the same value you have today.
Exactly.
Someone like to expound on that, or should we look at a motion?
Can I ask from a procedural standpoint as a newbie, if we were to approve this, would they end up back before us for they wouldn't not need another
No,
permit
if
to
we,
build?
if we
as long as
create
the-
a second lot, that would be the end of our duties here.
But then
if-
when they went to build, they wouldn't need a variance to build on
They
that
would,
second lot.
they would have, they would not need a variance to build on the
As
second
long as they were
lot.
granting
We
the
would have
building
approved
permit.
the ability to do that by creating that lot.
Yeah, and they would just have to build, their building would have to fit all the setbacks on the new lot, yeah,
Right.
Correct.
yeah. Which would be fairly easy to do with the size of that lot, right?
Yeah, yeah. Someone like to make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the variances under 195-9 for 47 Boston Road,
As presented.
as presented with all the letters.
Okay, all in favor of approving the application as
Second it,
presented?
Second. I'll second.
Apologies, second. By Nancy? All in favor of approving the variance application for 47 Boston Road? All opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Our next hearing is 91 North Road, Sechin, I hope I pronounced that right, Patel, for a special permit under 195-8E to construct a new 21 by 24 deck on the rear of the structure, which will further encroach on the rear setback and any other relief that may be deemed necessary. Good evening.
Good evening.
Tell us a little about what you have planned.
I want to, proposed deck will be 24 by 24. It will be right on top of the grass. It'll be a composite deck, and it'll be maybe a foot and a half high from the ground.
So it's still a structure, regardless of how high off the ground it is, it's still a structure. And behind your property, you have a bit of conservation land, it looks like?
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna figure out where you are located here.
I can pull it up. Typing Boston.
We don't have we get a little, yeah, there's a Lowe's, okay.
And this neighbor wraps around.
Oh, so you guys are the front one, they're the front,
This is him.
okay, yeah, the neighbor wraps around.
The neighbor to the left wraps behind him.
And this is the wetlands. Put that on. Which we got approval on Tuesday from conservation.
Have you talked to your neighbor to the left there?
Yes, yes, sir. I have a letter signed from
terrific,
both
terrific.
neighbors.
Two letters from both of his
They
neighbors.
do not mind.
Okay.
They're in the back
Good
of
to
the
know.
letters.
Well, then maybe we should go to the letters here and see what they have to say. I'm going to go ahead and read the letters. I have a letter from Mr. Patel regarding 91 North Road. I have a 12 by 12 existing deck, which I'm changing from pressure-treated wood to composite material. This deck will lead down to a new proposed lower deck with composite material, which will be 24 by 24. It will be within my property line. Should you have any questions or comments, you can contact me. Sachin Patel. I have a letter from Fire Prevention with no comments. I have a letter from the Board of Health for 91 North Road with no comments. I have a letter from the Center Water District for 91 North Road with no comments. I have a letter from the police for 91 North Road with no comments. I have a letter from engineering with notes. Erosion control along the back of the property is required. The proposed deck is in conflict with the underground roof drains. The roof drains should be relocated, and a professional land surveyor stamp is required on the plan, which I think we ended up with here. I have a stamp on my plan here. I have a letter with no comments from Community Development regarding 91 North Road. I have a letter from Scott James and Amanda Jean Kibbe. Do not mind and approve for Sachin and Niti Patel to build a 24 by 24 composite deck in their backyard, which will be within their property line. Signed, Scott James and Amanda Jean Kibbe.
Where do they live? Are they the
Which side are
neighbors?
they on?
They're on
They did not give an address with this. Oh, 87 North Road. I'm sorry, they
87,
did.
which is, if you're facing the road, they're on my left side.
So this is the one that wraps behind you as well?
No, this is the
Other
one
side.
that's on the other side. So the
So
one
the
that
other-
wraps
as you
around.
face
is-
it on the
is-
right side.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the letter, the one you're gonna read that's the one that's gonna wrap around.
I have a letter signed by Rupa Sarkar that do not mind and approve for Sachin and Niti Patel to build a 24 by 24 composite deck in their backyard, which will be within their property line. Rupa Sarkar. And that is the extent of my letters. So certainly pretty close to the property line. It seems the abutters have no concerns. It's certainly wetlands behind there. They've been through conservation. So the question is 6'3" too close for our comfort? The setback requirement is 30 feet from the rear, I think. Are they, what are they going for?
Well, and what are they now without the deck?
That's a good question. Well, it would be 24 or less, so they would be 31.3.
Is it gonna be
Oh, yeah.
31? Because
Yeah.
that second, the bigger deck overlaps the smaller one.
24, I see what you're saying, yeah.
So
It's probably already under
they might be
30.
like 28 or something, I don't know.
Right, right.
You can tell them your
Okay.
initial plan
Ye-
was the patio?
Well, yeah, but then it required the leveling and all that, but
That was
I'd rather,
expensive.
yeah.
Oh, to do like
Which
a
would- Which wouldn't have been
patio?
a structure, which he could have done, so he chose to do
So
a short
I do
lift.
have the existing deck, 12 by 12, so I got a renovation permit. I don't know if that helped or not, but that's gonna lead down to this new proposed deck, so.
Yeah, I mean, if it were a patio, you
Our
wouldn't
heart
be
says
required
on
to
a-
become in front of us. You could do a patio without permission, you know.
Yeah.
So you want to do a deck.
Well, we already bought the material.
I see.
I know, it's irrelevant.
Sometimes you go
irrelevant.
backwards, I understand.
Yeah, I know it's not relevant, but we already bought our are heart set on that, so.
The joys of home ownership.
I really struggle in personally, and it's a board decision, with the 6'3". I mean, would you find if we did 20 feet acceptable to you? You know, would you do that, or is it? So we'd reduce that width by 4 feet, and I'm pretty familiar with deck sizes. 20 feet is still a pretty good piece of deck.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be 24. And that would bring us like 10 feet off the back lot, which is a lot more palatable than the 6'3", to be honest with you, in my opinion.
It
And
still
it is a
doesn't meet
board
the-
decision.
I mean, just let everybody know that there's nothing back there, and we'll keep it, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's really
I
not,
know,
I understand
but,
from the layout that, one, the abutting neighbor has no problem.
Right.
Nothing will ever get built back there, as it's a wetland and likely to remain that way. I just personally feel that the 6'3" is tighter than I'm comfortable with. But it is a vote of the board, so, you may.
I really do prefer 24, but push come to shove, I have no choice, I guess, right?
I would be,
Right.
we're going to go out to the audience here. I don't know if there's anyone speaking in favor or in opposition to this, and we'll certainly welcome any comments. The fact that nothing's going on there still leaves us with the alleged problem tonight of precedent, where you let him do it, why can't I? And it's a reasonable argument.
Right, I understand.
Which is what we also try to avoid when we don't try to do, variances that are in excess. I think this is a special permit, though, yeah. That's a little bit of a benefit that it is a special permit, so we don't need a hardship, because I would struggle with that as well. What is the hardship, I am going to open it up at this time to the audience, and if anyone would like to speak in favor or in opposition, please approach the podium, give us your name and address, and whatever you would like to say.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is James Peck. I'm at 80 Dalton Road. I don't know how that me involved with this thing, but I got the letter anyway, so my property line is touch with
You're
east.
probably in a butter's butter.
Right.
One step away.
But the behind my house is all wetland, so rain comes, all coming to my house. So my house has some reservoir that it collects the house, and because so much wood pop it gathers, so it's like a sponge, so it gathers water.
You're at the low area.
Yeah, it's on the low area. So more water that comes in, then it comes to my basement, and I think when my builder built the house, he should have thought about that, and I heard that my land was a wetland to begin with. Somehow got a permit to build a house. I learned that later. So I did some research.
What year is your house?
What year? We got it 2001.
I'm wondering when it was constructed. It might have been before the wetlands law.
Anyway, so I'm trying to move the water away from my house, and that was my thing. Then Harvey, we saw, he built the house. He did redo the house next to me. Then because of more concrete, more things that the water.
He just placed some water.
Exactly.
He lives right
So-
behind that barn on Dalton
so
Road.
barn,
He's the next house, so
barn
the
is
drainage.
just next to me, and the water just coming down to me, and that I had to live over that. But anyway, but that wasn't my fault. I didn't, I said it, but I didn't force it hard to make sure. So water become my problem now. So I have to be very careful. Anybody touching that back area
Right.
to do anything, then even if we're just building a deck, maybe deck is okay, but how it get built?
During the construction
Clearing
process.
the wood makes soil to be vulnerable. You know what I mean? So I want to help him to build a nice deck, but make it a little bit smaller. Make sure that do not touch too much on the back area. Then it get very, very, uncomfortable.
You want to protect the wetlands and your property.
Yeah, yeah, I want to keep it's a nice area because that's why we don't touch it because of hurricane and all that, a lot of wood's been
A lot
fall
of
down.
trees came down.
Yeah, and then it become more problem right now. So we need more sponge to suck the water in.
Right, more sponge, that's a good way to put it. I like it.
Exactly.
More
That
sponge.
try to clear it out, then you're gonna have a more problem. Because
Right.
I think there's a back of that is major stream is going down.
It's definitely
Right.
going, I know the property, and
Right.
it is going
So,
towards your house.
When heavy rain comes, you see the, pouring water stream going down. I see that, but no rain is dried out.
Right, right.
So
Yeah.
I want to be very careful about touching that area.
It appears from the map that Colleen brought up there, that the wetland area actually divides the two properties. So I think you may be a little higher, and he may be a little higher, and it comes down into that area that's genuine wetland.
Where is his property? Where is your property on
The
this
outline
plan?
of blue is
Okay.
his property, the stair-shaped one. I think they're slave stairs. Maybe.
We have a little
That's
more
not bad,
history
though.
on that.
So I think the water would come off of his house, would not necessarily make it to yours, but land in
No,
that
no,
wetland in the
no,
middle.
my house is, water table is high. So
Right, the house itself is raised up, so
the
that
raise
area
up,
is.
but my basement is too low. I mean, the builder should not permit. It should raise the house much more so that water table.
You were out of
it
the
will
water
sit in
table.
above the water table. You know what I mean?
Right. I do know what you mean, exactly.
So, but in that case, whatever reason, he made my basement very deep. So with the
So
pump
you're
the
below the
out.
water table certain times of the year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm learning, hard way, and when heavy running rain, and I get that problem. So I'm trying to make sure nobody touching the back.
I think you're wise to protect that. I do
So
think
that's why
that
I'm here.
there's two kinds of structures, one with a roof that is called impermeable. Water that falls on that area doesn't get absorbed because the roof or the structure itself is diverting it to another area.
Exactly.
A deck does have slats in the middle, so the water that comes down on it goes under the deck and is absorbed into the water. If this were a roof or a structure, I'd share your concerns more. I do agree with shrinking it. I think that's a good idea. I just think that the amount of loss from impermeable is really the size of the footings, and that's kind of limited. The footings would hold up the structure. There'd be conceivably
Well, I'm
6
afraid
or
he's
8 of
gonna
them.
try to clear it out, not only the deck and what's surrounding it.
Like to level the land,
Exactly,
like maybe they put in
exactly.
fill or whatever to
Talking
level.
about the construction
So did you
process.
go through conservation? Did I hear Colleen say you've been to conservation? Can we see it? Do you have some documents on that? And maybe you could let this gentleman look at them as well.
Like, I don't know what they do for
Let me
duct
take a peek,
construction.
let's see what we have, whether we can make it clear.
Right now, it's just a regular grass, we're just gonna put it on top.
Right.
We're not clearing anything out.
So you don't have to like level the land or anything?
No, that's why he didn't want to do the patio, because the cost of leveling, and it was a slope for the
We're
water.
not clearing anything out.
What was it, a negative determination?
No, he got approval.
Well, the work described is in the buffer zone as defined in the regulations, but will not alter the area subject to protection under the Act. Therefore, the said work does not require the filing of a notice of intent. So that the Conservation Commission, whose job it is to protect the wetlands, feels this is a minor change or improvement. I mean, just really for your own peace of mind, it's in their opinion, what the gentleman proposes to do is not going to create any wetland issue.
Yeah, I'm fine, just slight changing the slope or.
That won't happen at all,
Yeah.
yeah. Did
And
they
then-
they instruct you to
and
put in
then
hay
direction of
bales
the
or silt
water.
fence? Did they instruct you to put in hay bales or silt fence?
No. See the stones in the back?
Yeah,
When he put up the first one, deck, that's their line that he can't go beyond. Conservation made him put that there.
So there's a stone wall there that you will not exceed?
No,
Right.
Okay.
no. Still like a couple feet from there.
Okay, so the stone wall is on your property line?
Okay, I didn't see that. Okay.
No, it's not the property line, it's the wetland line.
Wetland line, my property line.
Well, he's just, he must be somewhere near it, because he's 6 feet 3 away from, with the deck from the property line, and the stone bound at one point follows the property line and then does veer off onto the property. So he won't be going past those stones or into the sloped area at all.
No, I'm just let him know that there is a water issue that he has
Yep.
to be careful about doing it.
Yeah, I understand, I respect that, but we're not, it's on my grass and everything, we're not knocking.
Right, you'd be mowing it, or it's a deck on top of it, and the water's gonna flow through it.
I just mowed this morning.
I don't imagine this would affect your land at all, I guarantee it, but I would think that would be hard to do. Any further questions at this time? Letters are read. Have a motion to close the public hearing?
I guess before we close the public hearing, are we gonna have in the back pocket a possible amendment to the deck, or are we voting on 21 by 24 or nothing?
I try to be transparent, feel that I would support a deck that was 20 by 24, not 24 by 24. It's a board vote, so I'm not trying to.
We're just gonna vote on 21 by 24. and that's
We're gonna
where-
vote on what the,
As presented.
yeah, what the motion defines.
Which is actually.
I'm just trying to be transparent. If, I cannot make a motion, I'm the chair, so if you make a motion and go for 24 by 24, I'm not gonna be in favor of that.
Oh, yeah, we can't make a motion for something different, right?
Well, no, because
Even
I
if it's less.
misadvertised it. The plan is 24 by 24. but
We
the
can
only-
reduce that, we can't expand
And
it.
it's
Yes,
advertised
but we
21
have to
by
have
24.
buy-in from the homeowner to, so that's why I said before we close the public
I
hearing.
think he said that at worst case, if he had to take a 20, he would. I mean, if
Okay.
we approve a 20-foot deck and he chooses not to, that's the same as a denial for him. The results are the same, so he can choose the 20. And again, I'm not shaping this. If you feel differently, you can make your motion as you see fit. I'm just,
But we're gonna vote on 24 by 24.
Whoever
it's
makes the
approved,
motion
that's
gets
Whoever makes the
to
motion gets to craft
have
it in the,
discretion.
right, you craft your
That's-
motion to.
the word of the night is.
I can't make a
wonky
motion, so I would just
Motion. So,
tell you how I feel about it. If you feel differently, we can, we're gonna vote once on it, then we can't like continue to vote.
Can't iterate our decisions.
Lessons, one motion.
Yeah, we're still open.
Yeah, we are still up.
The reason I said 24, because the end of the driveway, it just kind of, it flushes out. It's just for aesthetic purposes. So that's the whole reason I
For
did
it to be
24 by
flush with the
24.
end of the driveway.
Yeah, so it's the end of the driveway,
Not.
and it's gonna be flushed into the, that's why I
He's trying to get it to line
That's
up
the whole
here.
reason. If the driveway was shorter,
The backside of the driveway.
I
for
see.
aesthetic
Oh,
purposes.
that, I
Right,
did
and
not
then the
realize that
deck
all
needs
that
to-
was paved. I didn't even understand that until you pointed that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So-
paved, so.
The area that they propose to go back with the deck is equal to what they've already paved on the property.
Yeah.
I did not catch that. I'm glad you clarified that, because I didn't understand that.
I wish I should have brought pictures. I don't know if that would have helped mine, but sorry.
Even from there, now that you say it, I can see it, but I hadn't seen it before. I didn't notice that. So now we're no farther back than the driveway. That's,
We want to make Chelmsford look beautiful.
we do too, we do too. I
Even more
really
beautiful.
don't think that anything you're doing is going to affect the quality of life there, only to improve it.
Yeah,
I believe
I need a
that.
little tan out there, so.
I do apologize. I didn't understand that, and I think it's sort of a factor. So we'll just go to the end of what's paved now, and then would not exceed the rock wall. Did you want to look at this picture? He brought one up from the street view. It might be helpful for you.
Oh,
So he wouldn't go beyond those rocks, and he would stop at the end of his driveway.
so he's gonna do the same place?
Yeah, if you look here, this is the driveway that goes all the way back. Those are those rocks that you can see in the picture. and this is the deck, would be equal to the depth of the driveway. Now, the driveway can go back there.
Behind, right?
Yeah,
now.
behind the house
yeah.
on the grass.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So, I tell you, I think I would,
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I will second.
second by Nancy. Somebody wants to go see the Bruins. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
I was hoping to go see the Celtics, but that's not
Yeah, that ain't gonna
working
happen.
out. so.
They're on their way to play some golf, I think. Okay, so, I think we all have a clear idea of, we want to go. I really, I would withdraw my opposition to the 24, though I still feel 20 is more appropriate, and adding to that 6'3" dimension is setting a precedent that we probably don't want to argue against again in a different circumstance. That's my opinion.
I appreciate the lining up with the driveway to make everything even, but I think going from 30 feet down to 6 is kind of extreme
I kind
for,
of feel like it's non-conforming either way.
I see your
Like, either
point.
way, it's
Yeah.
not
I think
conforming.
everyone's
Like, we're
gotta-
approving it to be like non-conforming with the setback.
Yeah,
So,
just how
The existing
egregious
house is
is it?
not conforming.
so do we want to like
We
make
have
one
with,
dime the 4 feet?
yeah, but then is that making an argument that if we're, someone who wants to go from 30 feet down to 29 is in the same boat as someone who wants to go from 30 feet down to like 6 inches? Because
Yeah.
it's all non-conforming, but for me, there's a gray area in between of,
I still think 6 is tight.
others are likely to exploit the, hey,
That's-
non-conforming is non-conforming, so.
That's the problem with the precedent, you know.
But,
But they might not also have like wetlands behind them and neighbors that are like, go for it, and a driveway that makes it aesthetically kind of fitting and all of those other
Yeah.
factors.
Yeah, you gotta make the call, I guess. Who wants to make the motion?
well,
If I make a motion, I would make it for the full 24 feet. I'm not gonna lie. And I feel like some of you
Appreciate
guys
that.
are not on board with that,
so we've got one motion to make.
but I don't want it to not pass. What happens if it doesn't pass? Then these people have to go through a process again?
It's just
With a
denied and they
plan?
can't do it.
You can't do it for,
But then
and
if they wanna cut it down to 20 feet and try again, they would have
They-
you
to.
gotta come in with a significantly different project, or wait 2 years.
It's a two-year period. I think we'd have much more support at 20, but
I will make a motion to approve a special permit under 195-8E for 91 North Road to construct a new 21-foot by 20-foot deck on the rear of the structure with the, well, this says 24 by 24, and this says.
that was the original
It's
application, that says
Okay.
21.
So
So what is your,
20 by 24, with the 20-foot dimension being going from the,
Towards the rear.
Existing.
towards the,
Towards the rear of the property.
yes, measured from the
24 wide, 21 deep.
20 deep.
20, okay.
So a deck that's 24 wide by 20
20 deep.
deep. With respect to all letters as read into the record.
second that?
Second. All in favor of the motion? Unanimous? You got yourself a 20-foot deck.
Does he get his letter back?
24 wide.
You can have, here's your conservation.
Thank you,
thing.
everyone.
Yeah, you
You're
get
welcome.
your conservation back.
Good luck with it.
That's why you're here.
See you tomorrow. Mr. House.
Last but not least.
The first.
Oh, you have to watch the show, too.
Yeah. Anyway, 87 Meadowbrook Road, Peter Natsios,
Yes, trustee. He's the trustee, yes.
trustee, for a special permit under 195-8, A and B, to demolish an existing structure and construct a new structure that meets the required setback but lacks lot area and any other relief that may be deemed necessary. We are Going down the hole again.
For your record, Douglas Hausler, Lampert Hausler, and representing the applicant. We're before you for a special permit. The idea is to take down the existing house, put up a new house that's entirely more conforming. It meets more of the setback requirements. The lot area is the lot area, there's no change in that. So we're making it actually more conforming. That's what we're trying to do here. It meets all the criteria. There's no additional traffic. There's no derogation from the intent of the zoning bylaw. We hit all the criteria for a special permit that's outlined in 195-9. So I ask that you take a look at the plan, which shows the proposed new house. You'll see on the, if you're facing it from the street, the side yard setback is increased from the lot line to 30 feet. Presently, it's about 15 and a half feet, I believe. So, we're making that conforming. The other important element is the garage. We're getting rid of the encroachment that currently exists with the driveway crossing from one person's property, Mr. Bushnell, at least according to records, across that then goes to the existing house. This will have a brand-new driveway coming straight in off of the frontage of Meadowbrook Road. I don't think it's going to be any more complicated than that. I hope you would grant the approvals. You had a long night.
For such a short agenda.
I know, right?
Long.
Yeah.
Waiting for the history lessons.
I didn't know we had to study for those three things either.
Oh, goodness.
If you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
So we're meeting our dimensional requirements excluding lot area. We have frontage. And we have an existing dwelling that's basically going to be relocated, squared up.
Exactly.
Torn down, and the driveway appropriately placed. Is this gravel driveway? Is that an easement of sorts, or is that just?
I think it's probably, if anything, probably be adverse possession or easement by prescription. It's been there for decades.
But it's not
I remember
recorded
when it
as
was,
an easement.
if I remember this correctly, this was Mr. Chakarian's property back in the 1980s. And that's about as far back as I go. That's about 30-plus years. So this cleans that situation up. So we get rid of an encroachment, we get rid of a nonconformity, we have a single-family house lot.
But the gravel driveway stays? Going
I
off to the
don't
back
think
of the
that will
property?
happen. I think that the gravel driveway, meaning which one?
On the
It's on the
right
plan.
side, there's something that comes in from the,
Yeah, that's gonna be a private property owner issue. That, we're not changing that presently, but.
So at this point, he has no legal easement to use that.
Correct, there is no
road.
easement to do that.
If he chose to pursue that, he could do that.
That would be a
freely.
private property owner issue to be discussed,
You
not
have no-
before the
no
board.
requirement.
that you're nicely fixing your own driveway. and
We're fixing
keeping it
what's
on your
ours,
property.
we're fixing what we created as a alleged defective zoning or encroachments. We're correcting what we can control.
All right, well, it's just a special permit. We have no hardship. We're improving the lot. I guess I will read the letters. Excel of that.
Do you have the wrong letters?
I'm just not finding the letters for that, but I think I just have too many papers here. Yep, there we go. 87 Meadowbrook Road, Community Development has no concerns. Engineering has made the following notes. Regarding 87 Meadowbrook Road, the applicant must contact the DPW Sewer Division for permits for the sewer service. Sewer must be cut and capped and witnessed by the sewer inspector. 2, a road opening will be required for the installation of a new driveway opening within the town's right-of-way. 3, consideration should be made to place the driveway in a location that offers better sight distance to the traffic on Meadowbrook Road. The proposed driveway location provides approximately 130 feet, plus or minus, of sight distance along the roadway's horizontal curve to the south of the property. I don't know if 130 feet is suitable or not. It's almost the whole frontage of the house. We'll talk about that. Number 4, no cuts into the pavement of Meadowbrook Road are permitted until the end of 2021 because the road was just paved in 2016. This does not include the driveway. All proposed utility connections should be utilizing existing utility stubs to avoid going in the road. Guessing that's your intent?
Sorry?
That's your intent to avoid going in the road?
Yes.
Erosion control should be extended to follow the 112 contour. Erosion control devices must retain the sediment on site. These must be installed prior to any work or demolition. 6, consideration should be made to install roof drain dry walls to the new dwelling. The property is within an aquifer protection zone 2. I have a letter for 87 Meadowbrook Road from the Board of Health with no comments. I have an attached letter from the Center Water District.
Is on the backside, I think.
Thank you. Chelmsford Water District has concerns with this project. A representative for the proposed project needs to contact the Chelmsford Water District before we can approve. Once contractor has met with us, reviewed, and accepted our requirements, we will forward a signed approval letter to you. In addition, the Board of Water Commissioners, upon approval of the proposed project, would request the following to be part of your order of conditions. Water is for domestic use only. Water-saving devices should be utilized throughout the facility. Xeriscape landscaping should be implemented to minimize water usage. Stepping aside for a minute, do you want to meet with the Chelmsford Water District? Do you want to proceed?
No, I don't think so. We're fine. We'll
Those sound-
deal with them. That's typical.
Yeah, those are all kind of typical requirements, so.
Okay. So we're not going to have an approval letter until you meet with them.
We normally wouldn't anyway, even if we were not having to be here for a special permit. We would still, before getting a building permit, we would have had to met with them. That's typical for anybody building a house in Chelmsford. They're going to have to go to meet the
Right.
water.
Yeah, I mean, I think the deal is they're in the district, the aquifer district. I think that's what,
Yeah, good part of it.
I don't think it
South side
should,
of town is.
I don't believe it should hold up your action tonight. I just, as a practical matter, my client's right. We're gonna have to deal with the water district before we get an actual
Regardless.
building permit.
no, it isn't really a part of the special permit process. Regarding 87 Meadowbrook Road, the fire prevention has no comments, amazingly. And regarding 87 Meadowbrook Road, the police have no comments. That is the extent of my letters.
They're building a whole new house and the fire has no comment?
Well, it's gotta be up to code.
I mean,
It's gotta meet code.
regardless of making it part of the record, they have to do the fire safety. It
We have to
doesn't-
hit the
doesn't
building, we have to
matter.
hit the current
Doesn't
building
need to
code.
write those down.
Usually they give us a
I just
small
thought
novel.
they like to say it anyway.
Why not? Yeah. NAPF 17-32, right.
Fire truck, 80,000 pounds, driveway.
Yeah,
Showing off their
yeah.
equipment.
I think their concern was just access to a back lot. That's part of the problem with that. They're trying to bring a fire truck in off of Boston Road in a 50-foot, you know, it's.
And
it's-
If we could restrict
Yeah, it's
our
straight
comments
uphill.
to this application, I don't want to relive the other one. Sorry,
But
Mr. Chair.
I bet we do, I bet we do. Okay, sticking to the future.
Present.
Barely present. Okay, so we're not gonna worry about the water district. I will ask if anyone in the audience has questions or concerns, approach the podium. Seeing none, I would entertain.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I will second that.
All in favor? Well, it seems an improvement. We've improved the lot dramatically. It's a special permit. We don't have hardship concerns. that have historic concerns. And we will let Mr. Hausler worry about the water districts. There is a process that they'll go through to, but we're really not gonna worry about that. I don't think that it would affect our approval either way.
Either way.
That being said, I would
They need
entertain a
lot
motion.
area and frontage for this.
I thought frontage was,
It's existing, whatever.
Yeah, it
There's
just
no
says
existing
lot
lot.
area.
It's already on.
Okay.
how does that work? Because it's an existing lot for frontage and not for area? It's a pre-existing lot.
Pre-existing, 125.
And actually, the zoning up there, I believe, is RA, which is 60,000 square feet for a lot. Because
That
it is-
changed, right.
Yeah, it's in a water, an aquifer, which requires the most restrictive zoning.
That's based on the zoning map that just came out a couple of weeks ago. They made that into an RA. But in any event, it's still grandfathered, so.
Yeah.
Right, it's still an existing lot.
Still an existing non-conforming lot as to lot area and as to lot frontage, whether it's RA or RB.
Right.
So it really shouldn't affect your decision.
I guess my only concern is we're taking the house down, but it's still the same lot.
So if they're grandfathered, why do they need a special permit? What's the special permit?
Because any change of a non-conforming structure on a non-conforming lot has to come before the board.
For a special permit, A and B, to demolish an existing structure and construct a new structure that meets the required setbacks, but lacks lot area and any other relief that is deemed necessary. This is where it would be nice to have Sean.
Well, he wrote the denial, which.
Right, but we don't, do we have it in here? Do we have the?
I don't know. People are going through the files. Basically, his denial is my legal ad.
Right.
Which is really the agenda. I mean, it's the agenda, yeah, so it's the same wording. And I don't know if it's in here or not, honestly. Abutters list. Billion plans of that, not gonna go anywhere. Abutters list. Well, I don't have the actual denial letter, but I think that you're right, the advertised document is it. Well, I think we're fine, whether it's A or B, there's still a pre-existing lot. Well, I would like to see that. Any further questions from the board for discussion? A motion, perhaps?
Motion to close the public hearing?
We already did that,
We
right?
did.
Yep, we're gonna be, there would be a motion to approve the special permit.
Under 195-8, A or B, to
Yep.
demolish an existing structure and construct a new structure. And we'll leave them to deal with all the water department.
Yeah, they're gonna need to go
They're
through the
gonna have to do
process
that anyway.
regardless.
Taking
It's really not
into
our
account all
decision
that.
at all
Yep.
anyways.
So we'll just take all of that into account, now we approve it the way it is.
For 87.
7 Meadowbrook.
We have a second?
A second.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Unanimous?
Good luck with it.
Good luck, you all.
Good luck to all of you.
Good night.
Oh, well.
Have a nice night.
You too, thank you.
Keep everybody happy.
I saw that. I told you.
All right, so do we need a motion to close?
We do need a motion to close.
So adjourn.
To adjourn? All in favor?
Did you make the motion?
I will make it a motion to adjourn.
Just a second?
You need
No.
a
Or
second?
just, okay,
Just
all
all.
in favor?
This is the new way we're doing it from now on. Everybody does the princess way. All in favor?
All right.
Hi, Chelmsford.
We are closed.
Good.
Okay, that was good.